I was trying to make a name for myself, but it didn't work out. And looking back, of course, it was a blessing in disguise. When we take a look at everything that comes out with all of the parties and stuff and things that are going on in the world, I think it's a pure blessing that we didn't get deeper into all of it.
We are very boring, we always agree. But I felt like we were not fully perceived because we were vibing so out of that frequency. We were so indulged in that, and we loved the validation of that and the glitz and glamour. Mm-hmm. But on a deeper level, we always felt like it's a dangerous world, and it's a world where you have to be really careful who to trust and what to do and on what party to go.
I even remember the thought I had. I love food too much. Like I cannot not eat.
Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to Rooted in the Cosmos, your podcast for all things spiritual leadership, higher consciousness, and New Earth vision. My name is Isabelle Gloria. I'm your host, and I'm welcoming you to this brand new episode on this beautiful Sunday. Today is a special episode because I have a special guest here with me. I want to introduce you to Elaine Valerie. She is a goddess path mentor and helps women find their unique purpose in life and goddess up their life and bring more spirituality and more magic into their everyday life. I'm gonna let Elaine introduce herself in a moment, but first I want to introduce the topic of today and why we came together to talk about this. We've been wanting to record this podcast episode for a long time, and it finally aligned, and I'm really happy to have you here, Elaine. So we've been working on so many projects together. We have a long history of working together, of going through good and bad together, and we will go more into detail why that is later. But just know that we've been connected basically our whole lives, and we have been through shit together. We have been through celebrations together. We've been through everything together, business related and personally related. So we have a lot to talk about. So we thought it would be powerful to have this podcast episode together, and I wanted her to be on my podcast for such a long time. And today is the day. So welcome, Elaine. I'm really happy that you're here.
Hello, Isabelle, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
So happy to have you here too. So should we reveal how we are related and what kind of relationship we are?
Definitely, because it's been some kind of mystery for the past few years.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like an inside joke between the two of us that nobody really knows why we are so close. So do you want to say it?
Yes. So Isabelle and I, we are cousins. We are family. Our mothers are sisters. And that is why we are so close. That is why we are so almost intimate with each other. And that's why people often assume that we are a couple or that we are in some way, shape or form in a closer relationship. We are in a close relationship, but it's just
it's not
soul
romantic.
Sisters. It's not romantic. It's pure soul sisterhood here and a lot of love.
Exactly. We're blood related. We basically also grew up like sisters because we don't have any siblings. So we have each other. So we basically grew up like siblings. We went through all the phases, like teenage phases and all the things together. And we thought it would be really powerful to share our experiences and to talk about the shifts that we've been going through on a business level. So as you all know, all the listeners know, my podcast focuses on spiritual leadership and on business and on following your own mission, following your higher calling. So I feel like we can share a lot about that. And I'm wondering if our audience ever felt like the world that they've worked for so hard to build suddenly doesn't fit anymore, because that's what happened to us a lot of times. Like everything that once felt aligned now feels like it's falling apart. And we've been there several times. And today we're going to share how we embraced that shift, because sometimes what we've both realized, I guess, breaking down is really just the first step to breaking through with something that actually feels aligned.
Definitely. And we've gone through so many things together. I feel like our journey has somehow been similar because we've gone through so many things, and our journey is kind of a little bit connected, as we are so connected with each other. And the things that I have learned, I could teach you, and vice versa. So our story, our everything that we're putting out there in the world, it comes from a place of teaching us and learning from each other. And I guess that is what soul sisterhood is all about. So I really love that we have such a deep relationship with each
Me
other.
too. And there has never been any weird energy of like me not wanting you to succeed or you not wanting me to succeed. It's quite the opposite. We really try to help each other out. And as soon as someone learns something new, the other sister will know immediately and will have like a new tutorial on how to do things, basically. So we help each other out a lot. And I feel like that also is inspiring to a lot of women out there. And we decided to show that side even more and to maybe do more stuff together again, because not many women have that in their lives, sadly. Like there are a lot of women who have strong bonds, but there are also, I guess, more that don't have that.
Yeah, it's so sad to see how many women really crave a sisterhood like that. And I think like we should really show it more that it is possible. Of course, we have the background that we are related to each other, but still, if you put yourself out there, you can attract a relationship like that. That is my honest belief. I love that we are co-working so often together, that we are really creating some magic whenever we get together. Especially we have another soul sister who is not here right now, but when women in general, when women come together, we
Shout out
create
Miriam.
magic.
Photo inserted here.
No, it's really true. It's like there is something about the witch circles, the women's circles, the feminine divine energy that pours through us, into us, and out of us. And then we really can create magic. So that is also what happens whenever we two work together. We often have a project that we keep on working together. We did some really amazing workshops in the past. I guess we should bring them back because I received some questions about them. And that is what really brings us to a place that we can put out more. It's always input and output at the same time. So we learn from each other, we inspire each other, and it's like I'm a generator when it comes to human design. I need to respond to something. And I guess you are a manifesting generator, so you also have this half generating energy within you. And that is what I bounce off of. So I get inspiration, I get inspired by something, and then I can put out some amazing stuff into the world.
Yeah. And like talking about like the whole feminine energy thing and talking about sisterhood and working with women, you're the right person to ask because you help other goddesses to find their path. And we will talk about like you've recently done some changes to that and made your own realizations. And I want to talk about that more toward the end of the podcast so you can have like a little bit of time to explain your process of why you shifted things and why things no longer felt aligned the way they were. Before we go into that, I would love to highlight a little bit of our shared experiences and how they have evolved over time. So maybe we can go a little bit into detail how working together on multiple projects has revealed different facets of us and different parts of us. So Elaine, we've worked on so many things together, from fashion to spirituality. Looking back, how do you think our collaboration mirrored our personal growth journeys for each one of us?
That's an interesting question. I think we learned so much, and it started with, just a shot into the dark, like a shot into the blue, just trying things out, going with the flow, going with what inspired us at that time. For example, we started with fashion, with the fashion blog. We went to Berlin Fashion Week several times and we wrote about the beautiful designers and all the experiences back then. And it was a way for us to put ourselves out there, to dip
Yeah.
our toes into the water. We wanted to do something. We wanted to do something with social media, which was still getting born at that time. So there wasn't
There was
Instagram,
no
wasn't
Instagram.
there was no Instagram back then. There was no TikTok, no nothing. It was just blogs that were huge back at that time. And we were starting out with that and just trying ourselves out and writing stuff and getting out there. Of course, looking back, it wasn't aligned at all. But how would you know if you can't try it out? Of course, we were always into, or we have always been into fashion and beautiful clothes, especially I am. I love fashion, and I guess you too. But it's not in a way that we're supposed to do some work around it, like getting a job in that area, in that industry.
Yeah. Also, I feel like we really quickly realized that we don't align with the people who are usually aligning with that kind of industry. So through putting ourselves out there, we made some really cool experiences. We were invited to things. We were backstage at like so many events that you usually don't get a foot into. And we got stuff for free. We got trips for free. It was crazy. But on like, we were so indulged in that, and we loved like the validation of that and the glitz and glamour, because we were a lot younger also. But on a deeper level, we always felt like it's a dangerous world, and it's a world where you have to be really careful who to trust and what to do and on what party to go. So I feel like our souls and our intuition told us that even though we are not completely on the wrong path, because it allowed us to put ourselves out there and to share our inspiration and our energy, something inside of us told us that this is not super aligned, and we hold on to that for way longer than we should have. That's something that I took from this experience. When something starts to feel not aligned anymore, I let go of it. I don't drag it with me anymore. And I feel like that was something that we also learned, like on a personal level, to set boundaries and to not engage in things that really don't feel good anymore just because you think you are missing out on opportunities, or whatever you've been working on is for nothing then. So I really gained a lot of confidence in trusting my own intuition.
Definitely. And what also came to my mind now is that personally, I was also into fashion modeling at that time. And I also did some shows for Berlin Fashion Week, and I visited New York Fashion Week and so on. So I was trying to make a name for myself, but it didn't work out. And looking back, of course, it was a blessing in disguise, because right now, when we take a look at everything that comes out with all of the parties and stuff and things that are going on in the world, I think it's a pure blessing that we didn't get deeper into all of it. And also, I was so sick of not having control back then, because as a model or as a blogger, you just were a tiny little piece of, the big system. And I remember a beautiful moment during a party. It was Fashion Week in Berlin. It was wintertime. It was cold. It was awful weather. And we two were there, and we were looking at the people, and we decided back then at that party, we're going to take matters into our own hands, and we're going to start something that really fires us up, that we are passionate about. And that is when our vintage art themed project was born, which was called the Vintage
Yes.
Romance.
That was a very important moment, actually. It's so funny now that I realize, when looking back to that, how that happened. Like, it happened while being involved in this fashion thing, something else was born on that party. Like, literally, we were looking at each other and saying, hey, we're going to do this thing, and we want to bring that out into the world. And it was something that nobody else has done at that time. So it was something really new. And we were basically, maybe we can talk a little bit so people can understand what it was. We were basically creating artistic photo shoots in the style of like vintage fashion and pinup fashion. And yeah, we really had success with that in the first year. I think we had, I don't know, 7 or 8 print publications in the first year of doing that. And at that time, it felt aligned. So,
Yes. It was a huge opportunity because in Germany especially almost no one did that. And we had one of the biggest vintage blogs or vintage themed blogs at that time. And we got the opportunity to write for vintage magazines. We had many collaborations with vintage fashion companies, and we had so many opportunities that were all fun, and we just felt aligned with it at that time because we were taking our power back, basically. We were empowering ourselves, we were doing our own thing, and we were just putting ourselves out there in an artistic, beautiful way.
yes, and it also felt good to, I wouldn't necessarily have that desire now, but it felt good to be someone and not just be this little blogger who is treated like shit by a lot of bigger people, because that was really a thing back then. Influencers weren't the people who were praised back then. It was really, really in the beginning phases of it all. And I'm not going to drop names, but I remember distinctly a designer who really treated us like crap, who is now only working with influencers, who is doing his whole marketing through influencers, and who is really using the people who are making content for him. And back then he was like, I'm not going to let you in because I don't work with bloggers. I don't work with those kind of people who just want to squeeze into the fashion industry and stuff. So it really was like a good school for confidence and for being rejected as well, because either you were celebrated or you were like the opposite of being celebrated. So it was like a very polarity based experience for me, at least. That's what stick out to me. And I feel like once we started this art project, it completely shifted because we were inventing something that wasn't there yet. And it was something that a lot of people also copied then and tried to also do in their own way, or maybe not even in their own way. Like we had a couple of people who really literally copied us and tried to do the same thing because it was so successful.
They
And
even used our name and stuff. Like,
yeah,
it was insane how many copycats there were.
yeah, it was insane. Yeah, we cannot drop names, but even like a makeup brand used the name because we hadn't saved that and secured that, and we are not 100% sure if they got it from us, but it was pretty obvious that they at least got inspired and just used the name because we hadn't protected it. So there was a lot of shady thing going on, but the dynamic changed. We were suddenly the people who they were looking up to, and that was a whole nother experience again, and it also shaped and helped us. Do you feel like that also helped us to get to a path that also feels aligned on a soul level? Because all these experiences were helpful, but they were more or less based on external validation, which we're no longer seeking.
Oh, definitely. Like, there were so many lessons, for example, about setting boundaries, knowing who you are, the self-worth thing. It was insane. Like, what I learned from that is that I would never give away my creative energy in a way that we did back then. I would never again say yes to any collaboration just because it sounded fun and just because the dresses were pretty or whatever. Like, I would really start protecting our stuff even more.
Yeah, I really feel that. And I think when things really started to crumble was when we were starting to feel more and more disconnected with even the success that we had built for ourselves, because it wasn't aligned on a soul level. It was this dream and this thing that we built, but it wasn't just this external version of it that we wanted to feel fulfilled in. It should also feel fulfilling on a deep inner level. And on a deep inner level, I think we really started to realize that things aren't aligned anymore when we really had our spiritual awakening and that voice got stronger. And this, like, both of our lives were completely different on a personal level than it was on a professional level. So in private, we were going through the most intense spiritual awakening ever. And on the outside, we were still these vintage models doing like pretty photos with rollers in our hair. So how did you experience that breaking down of our dream?
Oh, definitely. I feel the same. Like on a personal level, we were so much into spirituality. We were meditating every single day, and we just um, we sent information back and forth to each other. Like, did you read about this? And did you hear about that? And it was so interesting at that time. And at the same time, we were superficially presenting ourselves as beautiful models, and that didn't it felt okay in the beginning because it was a lot of fun and because of all the collaborations that we got. Of course it was fun, but at the same time, the more we did it or the longer we did it, the more it felt hollow, the more it felt superficial. Like I didn't feel satisfied at all. And at that time, I remember exactly that I went through my Saturn return, which is an entirely different topic, but every single person on this earth goes through a Saturn return. It happens between the age of 26 and 30. And this is when we start questioning things. And I was questioning like literally everything. I started my yoga teacher training, and in the background, I did many different things than I did in front of the camera. So it felt so misaligned because I was, and you too, we were different people than what we presented to the external world. And that was a lesson. That was definitely a spiritual lesson, because we started to think about, if it feels so misaligned and so wrong in a way, what do we need to change? And it was at that time when I started to document my entire journey as of becoming a yoga teacher. And I started a blog at that time and started to talk about yoga on that blog, and spiritual enlightenment and spiritual development and all of the things. And one day I invited you to come over to that blog. I remember that. And it was at that time when, I guess it was around at that time, I can't remember clearly, but when we started to slowly close down our vintage blog.
Yeah, there was a period where we tried to, like this failed attempt to bring it both together. We were, when we had like still a lot of success in the vintage world, we didn't want to kill that. That was like the main reason. We knew it was over, but because it was still working and it was also, we were used to it, we didn't want to kill what was working. So we had this failed attempt of bringing the two together, and we were trying to bring our wisdom that we had acquired at that time and that was growing into these art projects and these photo shoots. And we would do like some spiritually inspired photo shoots with really in-depth, valuable blog posts. They were not bad, they were amazing. But they wouldn't land with people because we didn't have the right audience. They didn't want to hear about our inner journeys and about our evolution. They wanted to have more pinup photos or beautifully aesthetic 50s photo shoots. They didn't want to hear what we wanted to share. And we were faced with this failed attempt to bring both together, and then having to let go of that thing completely. And from how I remember, you were a little bit faster in that than I was. So I was holding on to it a little bit longer because I always had this, always had this drive to find my thing. I also did a lot of things on the side while we were doing that. So I was actively looking to find my purpose, and it was such a huge desire of mine. So I didn't want to let go of something that worked. And I realized a little bit later, not long after you had really let go of it, and I could also let go, but it felt like a sort of ego death. Even though it didn't feel aligned anymore to keep this project alive, it still felt like, what am I going to do now? Now I found something that helps me express myself and gives me like this unique lifestyle that I felt aligned with, because I don't feel, and you neither do, we don't feel aligned with like the typical in the system 9 to 5 working schedule life. So that was a way to get out of that a little bit. And letting that go and not knowing where the journey is going felt hard to me. How did you experience this?
It was definitely hard because it feels like being in limbo. And I had several phases in my life when I felt like being in limbo, and it's not a nice feeling. It is always an ego death. It is like you need to surrender to a divine plan and go with the flow, even if you don't know where it takes you. And this takes a lot of trust and faith into the unknown, because you need to let go of what you know what worked in the past. And it's always scary to give up something that was working externally. But at some point, you need to be honest with yourself and realize, okay, if it's not working for me, I just need to jump into the abyss. I need to do that. I feel like back then, you definitely, when you had your, let's call it realization or another spiritual awakening, when you finally made that shift for yourself, that you went immediately to what you're doing right now. Like, for me, it feels like your next phase, your next season of life, your next era was the one you're now in, like the spiritual content that you share. And I had several seasons and eras in between, which there's nothing wrong about it. It's just our journeys went a little bit different from that point on. So we had a little bit of different experiences, even if we personally still were very much aligned with each other. Like the private journey was already, it was a different journey again than what I personally presented on the external world. So it took me a little bit longer to really align who I am at the core with what I show externally. And you did this switch a little bit faster than I did.
What I just realized when you say that, it's funny because I had a hard time making that shift and reinventing myself. But then it almost felt like once I was ready to let go, the other version was already there. Like I knew what to do and I knew what to share, and it took off immediately. Like it was, when I made this shift, it was my most successful year social media wise. So that was definitely a sign for me that it was aligned. And for you, it was really easy to let go of the old, but then finding the new was a little bit more of a journey. So we both struggled with this transition, just at different points in the transition. That's like, I just realized that that's interesting. And I think when things start to crumble in whatever way, sometimes it's the universe asking you to step up to a new level. So I think it's always an up level if things are falling apart. We just have a hard time seeing that while we are in this situation.
Oh, yes. That is what I'm teaching is all about. Like, I have this slogan that is called Goddess Up Your Life. I'm all about goddessing up your life at every stage that you're in. And I feel like I know a lot about transformation and burning yourself down to the ground and rebirthing a new version of yourself, because I've done that over and over and over and over again in the past 10 years. Probably because of my Pluto in Scorpio in the 8th house, which is all about constant transformation. But in the end, I also think like every little shift brings us closer to who we are meant to be and who we are supposed to be. And this is not like we need to be a specific version right now, and if we're not this version yet, then it's all wrong. That is definitely not the case. It's all about the journey. Like, we need to go through these shifts and changes. And for some people, it's like for you example, it's a little bit quicker. Like you had this one big shift and I had several smaller big shifts. And in the end, we all arrive at the same end goal, at the same point. And even now, we are still evolving, transforming, changing things up, because now we know how it feels like to go with this flow and to evolve into your next version over and over again.
Absolutely. And I think the moment when you really realize that something is no longer aligned is when you feel drained instead of energized by the work. And my intuition, like back then, kept nudging, even though things looked good on paper, but it was so hard to make that transition and to allow myself to be in that state of limbo, which I feel like is not that it's easy for you, but you were more open to that, and I was not open to that because I'm like naturally very like, even if I lack the energy, I still push through, and I know this is something that I have to work on sometimes to not burn myself out, because you were just mentioning feeling burned out and stuff, and I think looking back, I did feel that, like, emotionally burned out, not physically, but emotionally, and it no longer felt satisfying, but it was easier to just force myself and push through than to realign and trust that things are going to shift for the better. This is nothing that would happen now. I feel like we both evolved a lot in that sense. We would have a way easier time today to let go of things that no longer feel aligned. So I'm speaking from the perspective of my past self. But I feel like that was like the endurance that I sometimes have when things are getting hard and I still push through. That is a personal lesson that I have to learn, like in comparison to someone who maybe needs to learn to have more endurance. Like I'm like the opposite of that. I need to learn to slow down a little bit and to not burn myself out. And I think that was maybe even when we had this project falling apart, that was a lesson for me to be okay with not knowing where things are going, which is really challenging. And I think you also helped me during that time by you being more okay with that and trying out different things, and without even knowing, like, you were struggling in your own way to find your path, but it helped me to see that you also don't know now where things are going, and you just follow your intuition and you follow with the flow, even though it doesn't make sense. That was really inspiring for me to see.
I think it's something that happened completely naturally. Like, I was just following what I was called to do back at that time, which was moving into the direction of, again, expressing myself, but in a completely different way. It was at that time when I started with also modeling, but I would call it more artistic self-expression. I really was letting my dark feminine side, my dark feminine artistic side come out to the fullest. And it was something that I wanted to explore. I needed to explore. It was definitely a big part of my own journey that I wouldn't want to miss in any way. But at the same time, a few years later, I realized that it all was based on external validation again. Of course, I was internally very satisfied and validating myself because I was very confident and happy about the results that I produced. But at the same time, I now see that it was also you were able to get away from the external validation a lot quicker than I did. Looking back, I would say that. And it was a really challenging time because I know the exact moment. Like, I won't get into that moment more specifically now, but it was there was this one moment, and it had to do with me being in the spotlight, literally, and realizing I don't need this anymore. I don't want this anymore. I'm done. Like, it wasn't an ego thing. It was on a soul level, like a whisper from my soul. I'm done. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And that is when I shifted and changed my entire life. I realized that I felt burnt out because I did many things, because my Instagram was taking off at that time. And it was all too much from the external world, so that I had not been listening to my soul's calling in the first place, because it was also amazing and beautiful and validating.
It distracted you from what was really building inside.
Yes, the light was distracting me, and the light didn't come from inside of me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was still a beautiful, amazing time, and I wouldn't want to miss it in any way. And I'm grateful for all of what I was able to experience. And I guess it was also necessary for me to make this experience, because again, Pluto and Scorpio, it's all about the dark and the light and experiencing darkness. And that is when I felt truly burnt out to a soul level. And when I made the decision, okay, from now on, now I've learned my lesson, I dedicate myself, I devote my life to only listening to my heart, to really listening to what my soul is telling me to do. And I've been in this process for years, like literally years. It took a lot to really burn all of my old versions to the ground and experience and to explore who am I on this deeper level. Like that was, when I look back, I guess that was a lot easier for you, even maybe because you also didn't like the limbo phase, and I was immersing into it. I was really following the path of darkness. I was letting myself fall apart, and I was exploring a lot more.
I think what it also, sorry, didn't want to interrupt. I think what it also is that on a soul level, you are meant to make so many experiences and to have these different perspectives, because now you help women who don't really know where they're going, who are in limbo, how to get out of that and how to infuse their life with more magic and more meaning and more purpose. So I feel like it's just a natural thing that your light worker mission is connected to exactly what you were going through, and mine is connected to what I was going through. So I had it a little bit easier in like the external way of it all. So I just had to realize, okay, this is not for me. And then my true path just came up in front of me, and I felt aligned ever since. While my challenges were in different parts of my life. And your main challenges were finding yourself and finding out what is your thing. And on the way there, experiencing so many things that all helped you to build this vision for yourself.
And it's all connected. Now, in hindsight, I can see that it all needed to happen exactly the way it did, so that it could shape my vision for what I want to do in this world, for what I want to do with all of the, the courses that I make, the mentorship, everything that I create. It was the boot camp, if you could say. And that is what I'm most passionate about. I really love to help women who are in a limbo state, who know that they want to evolve into their next version, but who are stuck. I know how to, how to get out of there, because I know how to listen to this calling, because there is always this red thread, and it's not like single experiences that have nothing to do with each other. It's all connected.
I think what our audience can really take from this is that instead of giving up when things are shifting and when things stop feeling aligned, you have to choose to follow a thread that still feels right, and to not give up, because that was true for us. And I see that this is so true for everyone who is successful. So many people quit when things stop feeling aligned. They think, okay, this didn't work out. It doesn't feel aligned. I'm going to go back to my comfort zone. I'm going to go do the normal thing that everybody does. And even though they have like a mission to fulfill, or like this light worker energy within them in their own unique way, but they give up because things get hard. So I think what they can take from us, from our experience, is that you need to find the balance between letting go of things that no longer align, but also searching for what is next, or what is the next step in your journey. Because even though that thing isn't the thing, it will still help you to eventually get there. The only way to fail is to give up. As long as you don't give up, you don't experience failure, because you're still looking and finding out what's for you. And especially the women I work with, they all have this intense inner calling, like this higher calling. And sometimes they start working with me and they have no idea what direction they want to take. They just know they are spiritual. It has something to do with spirituality and with their personal passion around spirituality. And they want to build a career from that and help people and be fulfilled in that. And the paths that are opening up for them once they allow themselves to immerse in this experience and to find out what is possible for them is amazing. Because within a couple of weeks, they feel suddenly so aligned, and it becomes so clear to them. And in other circumstances, they would have given up and just said, okay, maybe it's not for me. I'm not gonna even try. And that is the worst thing you can do, to give up. I'm not a person who gives up. You are not one either.
No,
So
no,
yeah.
no. And you talked about, I don't know how you worded it, but there is always something that connects with each other, like the red thread. And when we look back at our journey, because we are so connected with each other, the red thread was always spirituality, bringing or teaching what we know about what we've learned, and helping others in a way. Because even during our vintage blog times, when we started to include more posts with substance, with more depth, it was always teaching something, teaching through our own experience, like the epiphanies that we had, or how to make your life better, how to shift your mindset. It was already back then, we were talking about these things. And that is what I mean. Even if you don't know yet where you are going, there is always something that you can come back to, even if it's not obvious yet, but it's always something that will also exist in the next version of you. And you need to look for that, the red thread. Like, what is it that keeps you going? Like, what is always there? It's like, I wouldn't say a natural talent, but sometimes it is, but a natural interest, a passion that what I always want to look out for is, what is the thing that you think about daily? What keeps you alive? When you wake up, what makes you feel inspired and what makes you keep going? That is the thing. That is the red thread in your life.
So true. And you mentioned finding like this thing that is always present. I think that's really profound and really important, and something that our listeners should really find for themselves. Like, what is a thing that you're passionate about? What is the thing that you could spontaneously have like a conversation about and not run out of topics? And something that really makes you passionate. What we also did, I just remember that, like on the topic of going back to something that no longer feels aligned and seeing like if it still feels aligned. Remember that last fashion week we went to, we were backstage both feeling out of place, but neither of us really said anything at the time, because we were fully in our spiritual awakening. It was, I think, 2018, when that was the year when I shifted everything. And we were actually already on that right path, but some version of us was still attached to the old thing. And that was not what was meant to be carried on. So you can also realize that. And I even got physically sick on that trip, remember?
Oh,
it wasn't
yeah.
fun. I was more on the toilet than on the fashion shows. Anyway, I feel like my body reacted to the energy that no longer matched up with my current self at that time. And it was a really intense experience. And looking back, it was a pivotal moment that told us something bigger was coming, and it was time to completely let go of this. So that was it. I just remember that because you were mentioning finding the thing that's always present. And I feel like we felt like that was still something that was meant to be in our lives, or that was a place to make connections and to network. And it was just completely the wrong setting. And we realized that on that trip. And we never, after that, we never went to any fashion event ever again. And we pretty much got fed up with the fashion industry on that last fashion week, where we really felt like, why are we here? We don't belong here. I think that's really interesting.
I guess it must have been even 2017 when if I remember it correctly, even earlier than 2018, the last
Really?
the last fashion week. Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
No matter, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, when I think about it now, as you're talking about it, it felt like a soul level, nope, I'm done with it too.
That's
Like
what I mean.
it was the same kind of knowing, inner knowing and soul whisper that was so crystal clear, like we're done with it. It was all fun. We had the time of our lives during the fashion weeks and this era of our life. But it was over.
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. And I think the purpose of that trip was to realize that and for us to really reflect that this is not for us because the trip was kind of bumpy. We had fun with each other and stuff, but we left out a lot of the events that we were supposed to go to because we just didn't feel like it. We were rather getting sushi and eating that in the hotel room. Like that was more fun than being at a fashion show. And also like some people wouldn't recognize us anymore, even though we have known them for years. So it almost felt like energetically we were out of place and the timeline was shifting for us, and people literally wouldn't even like that's a little bit woo woo, but I felt like we were not fully perceived because we were vibing so out of that frequency that we you know what I mean? Like we didn't
Yes.
even belong there. And that was
No.
so interesting to see. And that was, I feel like, the final push that we needed. We were already on the right path there, but for some reason we felt like, okay, let's go there, even though it had nothing to do with our lives at that time. And we were like, okay, let's make connections, let's network, let's just see what's going on. And the trip really reflected to us that there is nothing to network, there is no one to connect with, there is no place for us in this industry, in this world, at least not anymore. That's what really stuck out to me. And the hardest part of trusting to let go and about this process of letting go is that it doesn't mean failure, or that it doesn't mean that you have failed something, or that you didn't make it, or that you didn't make it the same way like the people in this industry that you've known for years and they are super successful in that industry now. It just means that it's not your place. I think that's often confusing to understand because we saw people who started with us in this fashion world, in this fashion blog world, and they are thriving in it. And we were like, okay, everything's crumbling. We no longer feel aligned with it. And sometimes we need to realize that letting go of things means to make room for something better and to let something better come into your life. And I know that you recently went through something very similar on a smaller scale, of course, but you had what I would call a complete rebrand. So you shifted again a little bit of the things that you were doing. Not that much of a change like it was before, like shifting from fashion to spirituality or something like that. But I see and I know, and I've been part of seeing you do that you are shifting your messaging and that it becomes even more powerful. So maybe you want to share a little bit about why you started to rebrand and why you did this whole rebrand and what the purpose behind it is and what your motives were.
Yeah, it was another, another birth, another rebirth, another ego death, another transformation. But as you said, not as profound as the past transformations that I went through. But to give you a little personal background, this year was the most challenging year of my life on a personal level. And I won't get into what happened, but it was literal life and death. It was, I had a deep dive into my own soul, and it was really challenging for our entire family.
Yeah.
But it made me get even closer to my own truth, to my rawness, to my to who I am. And I felt I felt like I cannot take any bullshit anymore. Like I cannot take, it was like, okay, I needed to simplify my own life in a way that it made sense, so that I don't have to put any effort into trying things and doing things that don't feel aligned. So I just want alignment, I want simplicity, I want truth, authenticity. And so I shifted kind of my values a little bit. And it all ever starts with values, coming back to your values, setting new boundaries, knowing who you are. And this made me think a lot about how I present myself in the online space. And I've been building my entire social media account, like the Elaine Valerie account, for since 2013, 2012, like a really long time. When Instagram started, basically, I started back then. And throughout all of these years, I've been keeping the same account. This means I had my vintage modeling up there. I had my yoga teaching experience up there. I had my alternative dark feminine modeling up there. I had, everything. And throughout all of these phases, because they were so different, I had, of course, many different followers. The audience was not aligned. And the message, the work that I'm doing now, it felt so not aligned with the people that are lingering on the account. Not that there is anything wrong with the people, but I felt like many people don't even see what I'm creating because the algorithm and stuff, and also because maybe they are not even interested in it at all. So it felt like a big misalignment. And as I said, I wanted my life to be more simple, more in alignment, more authentic. So one day I decided spontaneously a few months ago, I'm going to restart everything. Like I'm going to burn everything to the ground. And there was no sadness about it. It was just a decision. Now is the time. And I've been thinking about it for the past 2 years, maybe even. Oh, should I restart the account? But it was always with the thought, the external thought, like how do people perceive me and stuff. But this was a decision that came from the inside, like I need to be aligned. Not people need to be aligned with me, but I need to be aligned with my work. And that is when I restarted everything. And now my account is called I am Valerie. My domain is Valerie. It's been evalerie.com for the past, 15 years. So even this feels like being more aligned. And my messaging is clearer. I have a clear vision. I know what I want to build. I want to restart a brand new community with like-minded women who also vibe on the same level. And it's been fun and I've been enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, and surprised the people who were watching on the old account are still there on the new account. So this is also a little lesson to other women who are starting from scratch or who don't have a big following. I always tell that to my clients when they worry that their following is not big enough. They have like 1,000 people on Instagram or even less, and they worry that they cannot build a business from that. And it's complete BS. You can. It's not about the amount of followers you have. It's about the quality of content you put out there and the engagement that you create in your community, and that feeling of community that you are able to express and create through your content and through your strategy. So this is something that I talk a lot about with my clients as well, because we have this idea of social media that it isn't worth building a business with it if you're not in the hundreds of thousands of followers, which is simply not true. And since you've started a brand new Instagram account from scratch, what is your authentic, intuitive strategy for building community and staying real on your social media as you grow? Do you have any tips for our listeners?
Well, the tips that I can give is what I feel intuitively right now. There is no strategy behind it. Of course, there is always strategy like posting at a certain time and staying consistent and stuff. And of course, always post something that has to do with your topic, with what you want to talk about. And I certainly won't start talking about cars or anything like that now.
You can try a new venture.
No, I'm done, thanks. But but intuitively, I feel like I have a lot more creative freedom right now. I feel like I can put anything out there as long as it feels good and aligned with what I want to share. And also, of course, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out what feels most aligned or what feels most fun right now. Like, for example, when I'm recording something on video, how do I want to record it? And that is part of my own evolution. I always need or want to reinvent myself. So what is the next thing? How am I going to do things now? But the number one thing that I would share right now is to stay true to who you are, to what you want to share. Stay true to your message. And this is the number one thing, because that is the most authentic.
Yes. I love that. And I love that you said, like, this is your strategy, staying true to who you are and staying aligned with your mission, because that's also, again, what I work through with my clients in the Cosmic Wonders mentorship, for example. Of course there are strategies, of course there are some things that I also teach them that they need to know, like on a technical level, but the real magic is not accessible through a simple Google or through just looking it up. It's a process of really aligning with who you are and expressing your unique lightworker mission in tangible content. And for that, you first need to explore, what even is my mission? What am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to use my voice and my tone and my expression to attract the people that are meant for me? Because if you are just following strategies that you heard from someone on YouTube or something, and they don't align with you, your dream clients will completely not recognize you. You will completely go over their head because they don't recognize that energy that they are meant to recognize. So I think the real secret behind it all, and the real secret that those people know who are successful, is how to access their unique energy and how to align it with their cosmic self and with, like, on a spiritual level, with what they came here to do. We have cosmic amnesia when we come here, like we forget everything, but we can remember. And I think that is a process that we've been on for many, many years. I even teach that now. And that is why things are aligned now and why things are moving and have been shaping in the way they did, because we had to learn, okay, we need to align, we need to find out what's for us, but we also need to find out what's not for us.
You really need to find something that fires you up. Look for the red thread. That is most probably the thing that you should be talking about. Not always, but it could be a hint of what you're meant to be sharing and doing. Like I said earlier, we always had the red thread of spirituality. And for me, it was always something that had to do with self-evolution. And I would say my umbrella topic is how to goddess up your life. Yeah. And that is what I do. Even if I don't always post about, how to goddess up your life, I do it in different ways, like you do with your topics. I, for example, talk about how to become more confident, how to change your mindset, how to level up in a physical, mental, emotional way. How to do that. And it all ties back to the umbrella topic of how to goddess up your life. And for you, it's how to become a spiritual leader with your messaging that is aligned. So in a way, we have similar topics, but in a different expression, I would say.
I thought about that too. We are both helping. They don't have to resonate with that term, but like the type of person who could be a light worker, like the people who are here to bring change and to impact either the world around them or the world on a bigger scale. And we both speak to them. And with your content and with your work, it's more about goddessing up your life and also romanticizing the experience on Earth a little bit, not in a superficial way, in a very deep, like a deep soul way. And for me, it's like bringing out the natural leaders and allowing them to be okay with being a leader. Because I feel like, especially as women in the spiritual community, we are either taught to be in our divine feminine and be receptive and all that. And I see that a lot of women struggle to really take action and move forward and be naturally who they are, because they are so focused on the usual divine feminine teachings that are being taught in the spiritual community a lot. And we both don't have these typical teachings. You have your own very unique way of doing that, and I have my own very unique way of doing that. But in the end, we're both empowering women. We especially want to empower women. And I think these different approaches are the absolute proof for the energy behind that being important. Because your clients would rather sign up with you, obviously, than they would with me. And sometimes they would work with both of us. We've had that before. But you know what I mean? Like, we are calling in the people who are meant for us. And if someone is working or using social media with a strategy that isn't for them or that is working for someone else, it doesn't mean that it has to work for you. It doesn't mean that they are having the same success that anyone else has with that strategy, because it's really not about knowing the strategies and knowing the secret sauce for the algorithm, because there is no such thing. The secret sauce is the alignment that we both teach in different ways.
Yes, definitely. And just think of the example of you. You talked about, many teachers talk about being in your feminine energy to attract clients. Of course, you need to do that, to be in your receptive energy. But you are also a lot about the divine masculine energy within yourself, like taking action,
Yeah.
being a proud leader, like stepping into your power. These are also masculine traits within yourself. And this is one of the main things that you teach, not only teach, but that you embody, so that you can teach about it.
Yeah, it's like giving permission to other women who are natural leaders to naturally lead how they would naturally do it, and not fit into like a divine feminine mold that they don't belong in, because that's not their soul mission. We need different type of women. We have a friend, she's very much in the receptive, feminine, flowy energy that you would typically describe. And that is a completely different experience that is also important. She wouldn't thrive in the way or in the business that I do, and I wouldn't thrive in hers. So it's always important to really find your own way and find your own energy and basically express your divine mission and your purpose in a tangible way for others to understand, and to tangibly understand, okay, that is how she runs the show, and that is how she works.
Exactly. Like, for example, there are teachers out there who teach about mindset and writing down your affirmations 100 times. And I firmly believe that it works for some people. But some people crave more depth, and they crave more exploring their own sensuality, their own sensibility. And this is where I come in. I cannot do the superficial stuff. Remember Pluto, Scorpio, 8th house? I need to dive deep. I know a lot about the deep dive. And so I wouldn't be the teacher for anyone who was just looking for scratching on the surface, like the surface mind level stuff. But I want to go deeper than that. I also include things like that, but I go much deeper. And people who don't want that, I wouldn't be their person.
So true. Yeah, so true. I think that's a beautiful final word for this conversation. I have something else planned before we close out this podcast episode. You have something next to you that looks a little bit like a stop sign. This thingy here.
I have no clue about it.
I didn't
don't know
tell you anything.
Nope.
So I want to play a game with you, and the game is called Aligned or Declined. I'm going to give you some examples and some situations that a lot of our listeners may be in, and we are going to decide if we align with that, or if we would rather not engage with that, and we would decline that path or that thing that I'm talking about.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This is going to be fun. The first thing is charging premium prices for your spiritual services, knowing they reflect your value. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are actually selling themselves short because they offer amazing value and they only take a small amount, while others who don't actually provide value charge huge amounts. And what I always see, or what is a thing that I see in the spiritual community and in the coaching community, is that the loud, extroverted people are often the ones who don't really have the value. And the true light workers, the true leaders who have actual value and who share so much depth in their courses, they are so humble about it because they don't have this ego-driven need for validation. So this is a call to everyone out there who's listening right now. If you feel like you are too humble about your offers and you have a lot of value to offer, charge premium prices.
I also want to say or add to that you need to be really discerning with the teachers and the gurus that you follow on social media, because there are many who talk a lot about, the right things. It all sounds right on paper. It just, it's like a cookie cutter plan that they follow. But in the end, it's all about you. And if you truly feel aligned with what these people have to share.
The next one is taking the leap to quit your 9 to 5 job before you have your first client. Aligned or declined? I would say it's a neutral for me. It really, like, from the experience and from the people or the women I've worked with, it really depends on what type of person you are. For some, it causes them extreme stress if everything is dependent on their business and on them making money immediately, while others thrive under that pressure and it really drives them to give it their all, and they would rather lean back and not give it their all if they still had their job. And I know a lot of coaches out there, they are for like go all in and give everything up and there is no plan B and stuff like that. And yes, I agree, there shouldn't be a plan B, but your nervous system shouldn't be in overdrive either.
Like you said, I agree with you that you need to take a look at your own self, at your life, how it aligns with you, how comfortable you are. But for me, it was a no, because it is also something that I teach. You need to step out of your comfort zone to experience growth. And yes, it has to be scary and challenge you, but it shouldn't be outside of your safety zone. Like, you need to still have some type of security and safety. Yeah. And that's where you need to be honest with yourself. Can I really quit my job before, before having the first client?
The next one is turning down a big opportunity because it doesn't feel aligned with your values.
Hell yes. That's what we learned in the past 10, 15 years. One opportunity that I said no to was when was it? Many, many years ago, when I was still trying to become a model in Paris. So I was walking into all of these major agencies. And back then, remember, we had no Instagram. There was no social media. So we were dependent on modeling agencies back then. And I really had a serious chance with one of the biggest modeling agencies at that time in the world. And they told me that I need to lose, 7 more kilograms to just start with them. And back then I was already underweight. And that was the moment when I said, hell no. Even though this is the opportunity of my life, I know that I will be sick, or I will get sick if I do that. And that was also a moment of clarity, of sobriety, my soul whispering to me, no, that's not the thing.
That's so good that you were able to already see that, because you obviously were a lot younger and not on that spiritual path yet the way you are now. Because I feel like a lot of girls would have said, yeah, okay, I'm going to lose the weight, I'm going to try, it's for my dream. And you just valued yourself and your health more than that. And I think that's something to be really proud of.
I even remember the thought I had, I love food too much. Like I cannot not eat.
Next one is investing in a high-ticket business coach to guide your next step even before you feel fully ready.
Yes. That's one thing that really brought me onto my path. I hired business coaches to help me find clarity, to help me build the solid foundation for my business. And I've also been working with many other coaches in group settings, in one-on-one settings. And I cannot stress enough how important it is. Like, for me personally, I wouldn't be where I am today, at least not in that short amount of time.
The question was about when you don't feel ready. So when you feel ready, you actually will never ever start. Running a spiritual business while still facing your own doubts and inner challenges. Aligned or declined?
Definitely aligned, because we will never get to the point when we know everything. We will never be the most enlightened person on this earth. We are ever evolving, ever changing, ever learning beings and teachers at the same time.
You're always able to be the teacher for someone who is on the same journey as you, just a little bit earlier on.
Yes.
So your journey evolves as well, and the things that are exciting for you right now and new for you are not the things that you're meant to teach. So your content and the things that you teach to your clients will always feel a little bit more basic to you because you already embody that and know it fully. You're not meant to teach what is interesting for you at this time because that is where you are still the student.
And that is why you also can see, no matter what teacher you're looking at, they will always publish a new book, a new course, or whatever. And it's based on what they have learned in the meanwhile.
Offering free or heavily discounted services to get testimonials and make your name known. I would say that's rather a decline for me.
I wouldn't, it comes from a lack mindset. If you're desperate for validation, for, testimonials and stuff, and you always need to be in your power. If you decide to offer something for free, then it has to serve the purpose of really teaching something to someone. I would say, yeah, maybe, if it makes sense.
I'm more on the decline side because I don't really believe in discounts if you have value to offer. And I think it doesn't make a huge difference from a business standpoint. If somebody's not willing to pay the full price, they will also not be fully committed when they have like a couple of percents off. But it always depends what the reason for that discount is or for that free offer. So I would, from a business perspective and from like giving you business advice, I would, not you, Elaine, but our listeners, I would always connect it with something to celebrate or something like a new offer that just dropped, or you have to have a reason for this discount to be celebrated, not to be discounted because you hope to get more out of it then. That's a lack mindset, like Elaine said. So it's rather a decline for me because I fully believe in charging full price if you have the value to offer. But if you have something to celebrate, or if a new offer comes out and you want to give the most engaged and most dedicated clients like a little bit of a push and a little bit of an advance, then it is a beautifully aligned way to do it. We are very boring. We always agree. The next one is changing your career at 40.
Definitely. Why not?
We talked about realignment this entire episode. Of course you can change your career at 40.
When you take a look at Louise Hay, she was the founder of Hay House Publishing. And I don't know how old she was, but I guess she was in her 60s or 70s when she founded the company. There is never a time that is too late. Just start.
Elaine, the last one, aligned or declined, living without social media. It's a decline for me.
It would feel good to, have a detox and to experience the world in a way it was in the 80s, for example. I would love to experience that. But at the same time, we chose on a soul level to be incarnated right now, to experience the Aquarian age, to experience all of the technology and social media. So that is why I firmly believe that we are supposed to work with it. Especially if you want to create an online business, you cannot go without social media, obviously. So definitely aligned.
For me, and I think for you too, Elaine, it's not about comparison. It's not about suddenly wanting to get filler and a bigger butt. Like a lot of people compare themselves to these ideals that I don't even find pretty. But anyway, that's not the topic. Like, I feel like the way you use social media really depends on whether you will answer this with a declined or an aligned. Because when you see social media as this thing that makes you feel miserable about yourself, obviously we could live without that. But if you see it as like this opportunity and this gift that we have to reach thousands of people with the touch of a button, with a very valuable message, and with these opportunities that come with it, I wouldn't want to live without that.
We are supposed to work with social media, and that is also probably why all of you who are watching are here in the first place, because of social media.
Yeah, exactly. We all came together in this virtual space because social media exists. So let's shift our mindsets. If you have any negative mindset around social media, be sure that this can change when you change the use of social media and the purpose that it has for you. Yeah. Elaine, thank you so much for being here today and for being my guest today. This was really beautiful. I align with this conversation.
Me too.
Boom. I made these myself, by the way.
So cute. So
Right?
adorable. Like, I love it.
So adorable. So cute. Thank you so much for being here. That was a beautiful conversation. Make sure to leave Elaine Valerie a like and a follow on her social media channels. They are shown here and linked in the show notes. So make sure to check that out and look at her work. She does amazing work for spiritual women who are ready to find out what their purpose is and who are ready to really goddess up their lives. You can also find me on social media. It's linked here and in the show notes as well. That being said, I hope you really enjoyed this beautiful conversation that we had and you enjoyed our guest, Elaine. She will come on, hopefully again. I would love to repeat this, Elaine. If you want to come again, you're invited already. And that being said, I hope you gained something from this episode as always and you learned something new. And we will talk next Sunday for a brand new episode.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.